Our service is about to begin. I would ask if you have a cellular device to please turn it to the off position. Officiating our service today will be Rabbi Michael Schwab from North Suburban Synagogue, Bethel.
In memory of Glen, I'm now going to recite from Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, and then afterwards, if you'd like to join me in the recitation in the English, you can open up your service folder to the inside. You'll see where it says the 23rd Psalm. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo achzar, binoteh sheyar bitzeni, amei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemoho, gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo yirara ki atah imadi, shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorai, tishanta v'Hashem en roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yurdifuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai leorech yamim. For those who want to join me in English, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That is our belief and our hope, that Glen Bernfield dwells in the house of the Lord forever and remains in our hearts forever as we pass down the legacy of his life, L'dor Vador, from one generation to the next. One of the many attributes that he had was that he was a person who gave good counsel and was wise. And there's verses in the book of Job that says, Talmid Chacham imet mimevi lanu trumato. There is no replacing a person of wisdom. There are mines for silver in places where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth and copper is smelted from rock. But where can wisdom be found? And where is the source of understanding? There is no replacing a person of wisdom. It says in Pirkei Avot, and followed by a commentary by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who is honored? One who honors, loves, and cares for other human beings. The deepest wisdom man can attain is to know that his destiny is to aid and serve. And Glen Bernfield certainly loved, cared for, aided and served all the people that he was close to in life. Of course, his clients and friends, but most importantly, his beloved family. And speaking of family, I'm going to ask Lisa to come up and share some words about her father.
Okay. My dad and mom were my best friends. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. They were the first people I called when something good or bad happened, and I was always looking for advice from them. We would talk daily. My dad was an uninhibited person. You always knew how he felt about everything. My dad was a person of contrasts. He was hardworking, intense, diligent, and passionate about his work and responsibilities. And he was playful in leisure and with his family. He was a renowned lawyer because he was open and honest, caring, and giving. He always took an interest, gave rational, non-judgmental advice, and tried to help in any way he could. He was a problem solver. His children and grandchildren reached out often for help, and he treated each of us specially and accepted us for who we were. He was my main advisor, and I will truly miss that. He also taught me case management. Do the most important thing on your list first and ignore everything else so you don't get overwhelmed, and then repeat. On the playful side, he was a character. When he played Monopoly with the grandkids, he was very competitive and always wanted to beat them no matter their age. He loved to laugh, and he would laugh until he cried. In the Blazing Saddle movie, during the baked bean scene, he was laughing so hard that he fell out of his movie chair and fell into the aisle. When he told a joke, he usually couldn't get to the punchline because he was hysterically laughing at the same joke he told over and over. When he went to the Galena candy store, he got so excited and encouraged the grandkids to keep filling up their bags until they overflowed. Okay, just a few little tidbits. He loved politics, and he had CNN on all day and all night. He used the word whatchamacallit for most nouns and expected you to know what he was talking about. He called all dogs mutts and would say, "Come over here, mutt." He liked to swim laps and play tennis. He wrote everything down on huge yellow legal pads. He took notes on all phone conversations and printed out all his emails. He loved planning family trips, and especially many trips to the Olympic Games. He loved singing the Kiddush every Friday night, always with passion and zest, even though the words were always a little bit wrong. He was on the news because he was one of the last people to file his taxes at the post office at midnight. He loved to sing and would burst into song at any moment. He saved piles of Wall Street journals because he was going to find the time to read them. He was a huge sports fan, and that is all that was talked about around the dining room table. Go Cubbies. My dad was an idealist. He never thought he was dying, even though he probably had 10 hospital visits over the last several months. He thought for sure that he would walk with a walker again and drive a car. When the physical therapist tried to use a hoist to get him up the other day, he was in too much pain to do it. I think he realized then that his hopes were probably not going to come true, and he told me that he didn't want to spend the rest of his life in a hospital bed. He had been a fighter the whole way, but he somehow realized the fight was over. Dad, after Mom died, we said Kaddish daily together. In fact, he would say to the caretaker, "Can you get me that Jewish prayer? You told me how much you missed telling Mom about your day. You got solace looking at the salts she collected. You were lonely, and you were one of the last survivors of your generation. You cared so greatly about everyone you knew. Relationships were so important to you. I really don't know how I will deal with you being gone, but I know you are with Mom again, and for that I am happy." I'm okay.
Beautiful. Now I'm going to ask Gwen to step forward. She has maybe more of a presentation.
In Chicago, Illinois, January 23, 1935, Glen Richard Bernfield was born and began to thrive. To Harry, his father, and Adeline, his mother, he had an older sister, Marlene, and was joined by Merton, his baby brother. He grew up the son of a CPA and one of Northwestern's first female grads. Very impressive credentials of his mom and his dad. It was definitely a legacy of education for the Bernfield children three, Marlene an artist, Glen a CPA and lawyer, and Mert an MD. In the summer 1955, while on break from U of I, at a Miami Beach hotel party, Sandra Bayek caught Glen Bernfield's eye. So smitten was he that he blew off his friend's offer of a movie because the beauty in the crinoline gown, he thought she was groovy. Their courtship was fast-paced, and soon they were pinned, a flourishing relationship that some might refer to as whirlwind. They continued as a couple despite all the long distance. Sandy was anxious to figure out their future, but from him, things drew some resistance. Glen needed time and referred to their future plans as dead subject or DS. Glen thought it was over and told Sandy, "Don't be distressed anymore," because he said, "DS, dead subject, is no longer DS, and it's you I adore." And he decided he couldn't live without her. No more love from afar. And he presented her engagement ring in a DS, dead subject, human skull cookie jar. Sandy said yes, and in June 1972, the two, they were hitched and set up home in Chicago with the cookie jar. No, it wasn't ditched. Glen attended law school at Northwestern and became a JD. The two of them thought they had it all, and it filled them with glee. But just 2 years later, almost to the day, their first of 3 children came their way. 2 more children followed soon after that, making them a family of 5, just the beginning of their proud family legacy, the next to be born in 2025. Glen's career was important, a CPA and a lawyer, as success would make a man to admire. His office always stacked with papers and files. Oh my, you could never find any surface not covered, and it made Sandy cry. But he balanced the seriousness of his work with the humorous side when performing in drag at the Chicago Bar Show with glee and with pride. Or the time he was so exhausted he fell asleep on the commuter train and missed his stop in Highland Park, ended up in Wisconsin, where for a while he'd have to remain. Despite all of his accomplishments and all his successes, Glen was never known for his skills and timeliness. With multiple degrees and a fancy CPA, preparing his taxes were always on delay. In a flurry one year, he had to drive into Chicago at a fast rate, so his taxes would be stamped before midnight on April 15th, and he wouldn't be late. But to his dismay and to his surprise, he was captured on local TV. What a gaffe. His friends would always remind him, and it would elicit a laugh. Glen had an incredible love of the sporting kind. The Bears, the Cubs, and the Olympics most certainly come to mind. He loved the '85 Bears, won the Super Bowl football's championship. He brought Jeff and Craig to New Orleans, a guy's family trip. Then in 2016, his beloved Cubs, the World Series they won, but it took 10 innings and hours of pacing before he could relax and have fun. He also attended 5 Olympics, a gold medal feat, LA, Montreal, Barcelona, Atlanta, and Athens. He found it so neat. Travel was a passion, something Glen and Sandy relished. With treasures from all over the world, their house was embellished. And we can't forget about his life as a Romeo, ROMEO, real old men eating out, a group he joined to play poker or gin rummy, no doubt. In his and Sandy's beloved Tucson, surrounded by swallow, they always found joy and let go of all sorrow. For they traveled as sunbirds and embraced the sunshine and indulged at dinners at Beyond Bread, Guadalajara's, and Hacienda del Sol with margaritas and wine. All treasured memories of and with Glen. Just want some of my musings, as our 2 names were only 1 letter off. That was plenty of confusing. But be no mistaking, today is about Glen, as he leaves this earth for heaven, greeted by his beloved Sandy, many family, and many a friend. So please take comfort and be delighted to see the friends and the family from your family tree. A gathering of your life's legacy from everywhere, as we remember and tribute to you the song, Gnisten in the Nair, from one GRB to another.
Now I'm going to call up one of his grandchildren, Raina, to say some words.
Grandpa, you were always the first person I called whenever any piece of good news came my way. This was because you were my number one most excited, joyous, encouraging, and enthusiastic cheerleader. I can still hear you exclaiming, "You're terrific!" You were always able to share my excitement with me because you were a lifelong learner. Rather than taking a light interest in my life, you took a deep dive into learning about everything I was passionate about. You started saving newspaper clippings, programs from Fareed Zakaria, and even documentary films related to my passions, because this was your way of showing your love for me. You'd call me eagerly with dozens of curious follow-up questions and even started donating to causes that I was interested in. This made me feel seen and understood. But this didn't stop with me. It became clear that this interest and generosity applied to all of your grandchildren. And you became an expert in each of our unique life paths. In this way, you taught us that we were accepted exactly as we are, the good and the bad, and would be celebrated and appreciated to the fullest, no matter what we pursued in our lives. I also want to acknowledge your immense joy and love for singing, musicals, family, and of course, Grandma. My favorite may have been when you'd turn to Graham at the dinner table and sing from Fiddler on the Roof every single lyric to "Do you love me?" She may have sometimes rolled her eyes, but you'd belt at the top of your lungs, "And I suppose I love you too." Together, the two of you were a model for me of what it means to love. You'd sometimes laugh at the top of your lungs together, but also you weren't afraid to be vulnerable and sentimental. For example, in the last few months of your life, you showed me a birthday card I had written for you and let me know that you kept it in the drawer next to your bedside table and would read it over again every few days. In this way, you showed me that it was beautiful to feel and express a range of emotions, especially when it came to expressing sentimentality and love. Thank you for being my rock and my support, and for being a model of how I can be supportive for other people I deeply love in life. I'll miss you.
What beautiful words from a loving family. In Judaism, passion and tenacity are often seen in a very positive light. There's a concept you may not be familiar with that's called zariz l'mitzvah, someone who passionately pursues a good deed and the fulfillment of a commandment. Someone who is zariz l'mitzvah prioritizes that deed, actively works to fulfillment, and lets nothing stand in their way until that good deed is accomplished. Today we honor the life of Glen Bernfield, a man who was most certainly zariz l'mitzvah. As a professional, he cared so much about his clients and proactively and passionately went great lengths to take care of them. But most of all, he loved his family so deeply that if there was anything he thought they needed, he would move mountains to make it happen. He would be zariz l'mitzvah. He passionately pursued any deed that would bring happiness and success to those that he loved. Therefore, it is my very sad honor to offer my condolences and those of our community in North Suburban Bethel to his wonderful family, to his well-loving children, to Jeff and Gwen and Craig and Donna and Lisa, and to his beloved grandchildren, Jordan and Deanna, Laura, Jamie and Seth, Sari and Jacob, Raina and Ari, to his cherished great-grandchildren, Matilda and Jet, and to all of his family and friends who loved and adored him so much. My prayer is that the words that are shared today and the traditions we observe provide some measure of comfort at a difficult time, perhaps doubled by how close this is to the death of his beloved Sandy. I've now been given the honor to share some thoughts on behalf of the family who I had a beautiful conversation with yesterday evening. As probably almost everyone here knows, Glen grew up on the north side in Albany Park. He had very successful, driven, and engaged parents who acted as role models for him in life, whom he loved and he respected very much. He had lovely relationships with his older sister and younger brother, and was particularly close with his brother Merton. As a young man, he attended U of I. He was an excellent student and was incredibly proud because he was in the top 3% of his class, and that earned him a bronze plaque on campus with his name. And fortunately, many others in the family went there, so he had plenty of opportunity to show everyone that plaque again and again. He was a proud Illini and proud of his accomplishments there. And if that wasn't enough, he graduated as the valedictorian of his class at Northwestern Law School. And that is impressive. And I'm told he also became a CPA. Clearly, Glen was a brilliant man with a drive to succeed in academics and professional studies. And from there, he had a wonderful career as an attorney. After a setback out of law school, where he was denied a job because he was Jewish, something I'm going to return to later, he impressed one of the lawyers he worked with on his first job, and he and another attorney asked Glen to join them in creating their own firm, which he gladly accepted. Though he went through many evolutions during his career, what the family told me is that what characterized it most was his old school, deep care for his clients and the long-standing relationships he built with them. His clients, I am told, were frequent guests at the family dinner table and for people whom he'd always go the extra mile. He never overbilled, and he never put workday hour limits on his service to them. His children shared that he had incredible work ethic, and Jeff in particular remembered him working at his home until late hours of the night. He was beloved by his clients and respected by his colleagues and received many recognitions for his service. He was a model for others for how to be a professional who served his clients' best interests at all times. And he had the same passion, just to a greater degree, for his greatest love, his family, all of you. Sadly, only 2 months ago, we told the story of how Glen and Sandy met as we put Sandy to rest. And it was shared a little bit in the poem, but what we can certainly highlight again and again is that Glen was so in love with her, and that his face lit up whenever she walked in the room. They had a beautiful relationship, and they supported each other through difficult times. Glen was amazing to Sandy in her last years when she was very sick and needed a great deal of support. And that just goes to show, as you all know, when he loved someone, he was all in. Perhaps there's a little consolation that they are together again. And Glen was also a very engaged father. Even though he worked many hours as an attorney, he was there for the small things and the big, and his heart was always with his family. His children recalled that when they were very young, after he gave them a bath, he will towel them off while singing the song, Singing in the Rain, backwards. They remember family vacations, piling in the station wagon, often heading to New York. They remember how he brought adventure into their lives, taking them hiking, calling them Lewis and Clark, and that he also loved taking them to new places. And he was always there for his children. He always wanted to know how they were doing and had a keen radar for when things weren't quite right. If he suspected anything, he would try to help, whether you wanted him to or not. And this love and devotion even continued greater with his grandchildren. They too always felt his care. When they were kids, Glen would obsessively ask their parents how they were doing or get them on the phone to ask them himself. And when they had cell phones, watch out. Multiple calls, and expect at least a 30-minute conversation, which could easily go over an hour if you let it. They recall amazing times in Galena, eating ribs with their hands, going to brunch, getting muffins at the general store, and the best was going to the candy store with him, which was definitely more fun for him than any of the kids. They recall playing Monopoly with him, as was mentioned, which is a serious competition, and he always tried to win, maybe a little too hard, as there were some suspicions that he took advantage of always being the banker. What everyone reflected was that in life, he was a constant, non-judgmental, loving presence who gave great advice and somebody who always believed in you. It was almost like he couldn't understand why any of his relatives could have a setback because you were all so amazing. But nonetheless, if he was needed, he was there to make you laugh, to lend a helping hand, or to express the care that you needed. He was the true patriarch of the family, connecting everyone through the force of his personality. Through his big heart and his great love, he and Sandy created a close-knit family that cared for one another. And he was thrilled to know that there was a fourth generation in his lifetime, as he was so happy to get to know Matilda and Jet. He never tired of watching videos of them when he could not be in their presence. He loves you all dearly, and I know you will all always carry him in your hearts. As the rabbi, I do want to mention that Glen, though not growing up religious, After his experience being rejected from his first job because he was a Jew, combined with Sandy's Orthodox background, he truly embraced Judaism in his adult life. Shabbat became critical, and everyone in the family was expected to be there for dinner. As you heard, he enthusiastically recited the Kiddush each Friday night, even though he may not have gotten many or any of the words quite right. He loved going to shul, singing the prayers in full voice, and being a part of the Jewish community. And he cared deeply about Israel and the Jewish people. I salute Glen for his dedication to his Jewish identity and to our traditions. Another way that Glen expressed his passions was through Chicago sports and the Olympics. Though his own father was not a sports fan at all, Glen became a huge Bears and Cubs fan, as well as a big fan of Illini sports. They had Bears season tickets since 1962, and the family had many recollections of games with him, which always involved lots of food, especially loaded hot dogs, which didn't always make it to his mouth. I assume he had a good dry cleaner. He even got Sandy into baseball, and she became a diehard Cubs fan. Craig recalled that when he was doing a project for school, he chose to do it on George Hallis, and after persistent calls to his office, George actually called him at home. No one was more excited than Glen, who picked up on the call, and when George invited Craig to his office, Glen begged to be a part of it, and he was. He made the boys even dress up in their bar mitzvah suits for the visit. It was a great day for him, maybe also for Craig, I don't know. He made the and at the dinner table, as you heard, he loved talking sports with his boys and with Jordan in particular. I was told that literally right before he died on Sunday, he asked his caregiver to turn on the Bears game, and that he actually died while watching the game. His other great love was food, but I was told he was not a foodie. He just loved eating. If it was served to him, he ate it. The family recalled that on a trip to Israel after visiting Yad Vashem, they went to the cafeteria to eat. Everyone was sad and the food was terrible, so no one ate much. Not Glen. He just ate everyone else's portions as well. His joke was that over the course of his lifetime, he lost 3,000 pounds and put on 3,250. He was especially enamored with Sandy's cooking, and as mentioned, he loved his candy. However you look at it, Glen lived his life to the fullest. He was brilliant, he was affable, he was loyal, he was uninhibited, he was hardworking, he was wise, he was engagingly childish, and he was most of all full of love. Whether he was belly dancing with his shirt off to make others smile and laugh, working deep into the night to help a client, or giving great advice to a family member who needed it, Glen lived a life of devotion to others and a life full of love. Yehi Zichro Baruch, may the memory of Yaakov Simcha ben Svidov HaKohen, Glen Bernfield, always be for a blessing, and let us all say, Amen. Now I'm going to ask our friends from the cemetery to lower the casket. As they do so, I'm going to recite from Psalm 121. Shir Lamalot, Esai Nailarim Me'ain Yavo Ezri, Ezri Mi'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Va'aretz, Al Yitain Lamot Raglecha, Al Yanum Shomrecha, Hini Lo Yanum V'lo Yishan, Shomer Yisrael, Adonai Shomrecha Adonai Tzilcha Yad Yaminecha, Yom HaShemesh Shel Yakeka, Yarech Balayla, Adonai Yishmorcha Mikol Ra Yishmor Et Nafshecha, Adonai Yishmor Tzidcha Uvoecha, Me'ata V'ad Olam. Song for Ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm and guard your life. God guard your going and your coming, now and forevermore. Al Mekomo Yavova Shalom. May Glen Bernfield go unto God in peace, and let us all say, Amen. In a few moments, before the vault cover is lowered, I'm going to add Israeli earth on top of the casket. There is already Israeli earth inside the casket. This represents Glen's eternal connection to the land and the people of Israel. As they prepare to lower the vault, I'm going to recite from a prayer called Siduk Hadin, reminding us of the righteousness of God even at difficult times. Hatzur tamim polo ki chol rachav mishpat elamuna ve'navel tzadik v'yasharhu. Hatzur tamim b'chol poal mi'omar lo matifal shalif v'mata v'mal memidim b'chaya m'richol v'ya'al. Hatzur tamim b'chol maaseh mi'omar lo mataseh omer v'aseh chesed chinam lanu taseh. Vizkutane kad kesak shiva ve'aseh. Tzadik b'chol rachav hatzur tamim erech apayim u'malei rachamim chamolna v'chusna lavot tuvanim. Ki lecha Adon haslichot v'rachamim. Tzadik ata Adonai lamid l'chayot. Asher biyadcha pikton kol ruchot. Chalil lecha zichroni lilichot. V'yuna einecha b'rachamim aleinu fikuchot. Ki lecha Adon harachamim v'aslichot. Adami ben shana yeh 1000 shanim yichya ma yitron lo kol yeh baruch dayan hamet. Mimit u'mechayeh. Baruch hu ki emet dino mashoteda kol beino mashalim l'adam cheshbono v'dino. V'akol yishmo deyayitenu. Yadanu Adonai ki tzedek mishpatecha titzdak bidvarecha v'dizke b'shovtecha v'ein lo arher achar midat shovtecha tzadik ata Adonai v'yashar mishpatecha. Dayan emet shofet tzedek v'emet baruch dayan hemet shekol mishpatav tzedek v'emet nefesh kol chai biyadecha tzedek malai minecha rachim al peitat son yadecha v'tomar lamalach heref yadecha Gdol ha'etzav v'rav haliyah Asher einecha pikuchot al kol darchei v'nei adam latit lish b'chid rachav yichvi me'al alav l'gid ki asher Adonai tzri v'lav latzabo Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevarach v'rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit v'yirba lashiv apo v'lo ya'ir kol chamato. We know, God, that your discretion is beyond us. We know, God, that your word is good, but your judgments at times puzzle us. And though we may brood over harsh realities, we do place our trust in your righteousness. We accept our loss and the love that remains with us forever. Have mercy upon us and strengthen us to maintain our courage at a time of sorrow. Adonai Natan, the Lord has given, Adonai Lakach, and the Lord has taken. Yishem Adonai Mevarach, praise be the name of God. V'yashov ha'afar al ha'aretz k'shaya v'aruach tashuv el Elohim asher natana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May Glen Bernfield's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. Send comfort, God, to those who mourn. Grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. And let everyone here say, Amen. Now I'm going to ask those who are seated, if you have the ability, to please stand. I'm going to recite the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kidoshim Utorim, Kizohar Arakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Yaakov Simcha, Ben Svidov HaKohen Shelach Liolamo, B'gan Eden Tzei Menuchato, Ana Bala Rachamim, Hastireu B'Seiter Kenafecha Liolamim, Utzror b'tzorach haim nishmato. Adonai nachalato. V'yenuch b'shalom amishkavo v'nomar amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to Glen Bernfield, Yaakov Simcha ben Tzvi Dov HaKohen, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that a loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. May he always rest in peace. And let us once again say, Amen. And ask the immediate family to join me in the Mourner's Kaddish, which is in the service folder if you'd like to follow along. Yitz Gadal, V'yitz Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma, Divra, Chirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam U'almei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shmei Dekudusha Brichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Damiran B'alma V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya L'chaim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'romav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. At this time, it's our custom as Jews to be the ones to put our relative to their final rest, our friend, our community member. And if so, I'm going to invite everyone here, if they can feel comfortable, to participate in the burial. There are some customs that if you'd like to follow them, to recognize the sacred nature of the burial, that it is chesed, a great act of loving kindness, that we do at least 3 shovelfuls to show that you're doing something like significance. Second is that you don't hand the shovel from one person to the next like you're in a rush. You just put the shovel back in the earth. You can hold it if you want so the shovel doesn't fall down for the next person. And some people follow the third custom, which is instead of using the first shovelful, the shovel the normal way, you turn the blade upside down and just push a little bit in, because you never do that in a normal act of shoveling, and this reminds you that it is an act of loving kindness. So please be careful around the sides of the graveside and feel free. Yeah, the family can come on up on either side, and then everybody else can follow behind.
Everyone, please be careful around the grave.
Thank you. Anybody else can feel free to please come, step up if you feel comfortable.
Want to let everyone know following the interment until 8 p.m. this evening, the family will be gathering at the Bernfield residence 1755 Overland Trail in Deerfield. For those of you who are present, that information is on your service folder. For those of you who are joining us online, that information is available on our website. The family should know no more sorrow.
Minion's at 7. And the prayer minion will be at 7 p.m.
Remember when I used to babysit for your post the dogs? So they got me it was Harper, so they got me a collar. That was my pleasant. Yeah, it's still it's all you get. It's still, and I still have it.
You probably didn't have time to finish this one out. Do you want
Me personally, or
no, like,
I think whatever I want to do with it, whatever it's left, you have to try to. That's fine. I can do a few more shovels.
all right, we'll do it. Yes.
Maybe no, I don't. That's not look. Thank you. That was 20 years ago. Okay. Wasn't too far off. I'm gonna. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming. Yeah. Okay. Okay, all right. Then we'll go get your last shovel. That's all right. I don't need to do it. I don't know if they're asking me or
Our friends from the cemetery are going to help fill in the end, and then afterwards we're going to create something called a shura, 2 lines facing each other, creating a corridor for the family to walk between, so that they know that as they make their way into Shiva, they're surrounded by their community of family and friends.
How old was he? I don't know, it was like 13 or 14. So half of it was old. Yeah, I don't know how old he was. Like 7 years. Maybe something. He was really nice. Say whatever came to his mind. You don't change. But he did. But he did. Every year our seats would get better, better, better. He still has the seats now. He was even I never know. Where are seats? Like 40 yards away. Second row. The media down. Is that fair enough? Second row, right? Yeah, they're good seats. They're great seats. Because you're right. Everything comes over. If someone freezes or something, you don't get the. It's the old one.
Ladies and gentlemen, please come over
If anybody who's not in the immediate family could go over to David Jacobson, where he's helping you make 2 lines, creating a corridor. All the family, the immediate family, if they could come to me, because we're going to walk down the corridor. Yeah, grandchildren can be part of it, sure. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want. If the grandchildren want to be up here, it can be here. They can be in the line. They can be in the line. Here.
Sarah and Jacob, you can come. And Jacob.
Yeah, you're going to be with them. You're going to walk. I don't know if you want to be a part of it. I don't know if you guys want to be a part of it or not, but okay. As they make their way into the Shiva period, we want all of you to know that you're surrounded by the love and support of your community, of your friends, of your family, and always by the presence of God. Please walk with me. If any of the people in the line know the words of comfort, you can say it to them as they pass by. Hamakom yinachem nechem b'tov sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you amongst all the morning.